The next button is the hypothesize button. As you are working through cases, it is useful to assert hypotheses, which are basically possible diagnoses that you are considering. So to assert a hypothesis, you would left-click the hypothesize button. And again, I get another pop-up window, but in this case, I get the different diseases that I have to choose from. In this case, I want to say that it's an in situ and invasive melanoma. And when I do that, again, my disease will appear up here. The next button is the diagnosis button, which you can look at diagnoses as basically your final answer, your final diagnosis. The ultimate goal of any case is to make a diagnosis. So if I left to select that, again, I get the same choices that I had in the hypothesize button, the same diseases. But in this case, I'm saying that this is my diagnosis. This is my final diagnosis. So I'll go ahead and select in situ and invasive melanoma, and it'll appear down there. However, I'm going to delete that to show that there's another way to diagnose things. You can also make a hypothesis a diagnosis simply by holding down the left mouse button and dragging your hypothesis down to the diagnosis portion of your screen, and it'll appear down in there. You can also diagnose things a different way by, I'm going to go ahead and delete just to show what will happen if I would say a diagnosis and put in situ an invasive melanoma by itself, put it straight as a diagnosis. When you do that, it'll appear both as a diagnosis and a hypothesis. So if you skip the diagnosis step and put down something as a diagnosis, it'll appear as a hypothesis as well. But again, you want to consider hypotheses possible diagnoses, and diagnoses would be like your final diagnosis.